Are we Filipinos ready for all-electric cars? With the iX, BMW wants to make it so. This is the BMW iX xDrive40, the first all-electric car being offered by BMW Philippines. Now, electromobility is not something new in the Philippine market. Actually, Nissan is already offering the Leaf, the pure electric Leaf here. But the problem though is the pricing. You see, at 2.8 million, you're still buying a compact car. But in the luxury sector, that's not really a problem. At 6.29 million introductory price, this is a much better vehicle in terms of size and value proposition, because look at the vehicle, it's more like an SUV. Sorry, BMW, it's an SAV. That's how they like to call these things. When it comes to the design, well, if you thought that BMW penned the concept car version of this and called it a day and then put it into production, well, that's actually how it appears to me. Because look at that front, it seems very, very concept car-ish. The hood bulge, it looks really nice. The headlights are very sharp, and then that bumper, it looks very, very concept car. But the nice thing here is the grille. It's not really a grille. It's there really for show because there are no holes in it. It is not technically a radiator grille. It's just there for the design. But make no mistake about it, there's a radiator here when we pop the hood. And I'm sure BMW does not want us to pop the hood. I'll show you later. Now, from this angle, you can see that it is a very SUV type vehicle because the proportions seem very X3, maybe even almost X5 to me. But the height is not that high, but it does have a good deal of ground clearance. Now, a couple things I want to point out here. The door handles are nice and recessed there. It's actually got a little button in here. You can also tap this to unlock and lock. But also, one thing I noticed, there's a little door here that has the manual key slot thing there. But what's good here though, when you open the door, if you look there, you'll see that part of the frame, the monocoque, is actually made of bare carbon fiber reinforced plastic, CFRP, or just carbon fiber, which adds to the rigidity of the vehicle. Actually, the materials for the monocoque of this is actually made up of carbon fiber, steel, and aluminum, high-strength steel, that kind of thing. But what you will notice here, see the floor, the level of the floor of the undercarriage, as well as the level of the floor, there's a big gap there. The reason for that, the batteries for this vehicle are all under there, under the seats, under the floors. That's where they store the batteries of an electric vehicle. The back looks really neat, doesn't it? I mean, with the white, the black, the blue down there. I'm not too sure about this part right here. I mean, they could have gone for a full floating roof effect by blacking this whole thing out. But what do I know? I'm not a car designer. Now, to open the boot is actually done. You can do it by there, the button there, or you can press the key. You can press the key. There you go. Now, if you notice, the tailgate opens in a clamshell style because the taillights go up with the tailgate. But no worry, they have backup lights down there for your safety on the road. Now, in this configuration, the maximum cargo length that you have is about 44 inches from here to there, 41 inches from here to there. So it's not that big, and it's also quite high because, of course, they have to make room for stuff underneath. And speaking of underneath, under here, well, there's not really much space there because what you have here is a wireless charger right there. Sorry, not wireless charger, wired charger for your home. And then your tire repair kit. You do not get a spare tire in the BMW. You get the kit over there and an inflator. Now, if you're wondering, since you're going to be a BMW owner, how do I put my golf club is in there? Because golf clubs usually about 45 inches thereabouts. Well, you pull these. When you do that, what you end up with is a space that is actually 66 inches long from here to the supported part on the rear seat. So, pretty big, pretty good. Now let's look at what's under the hood, what BMW doesn't want you to see. Back up front, Here we can see more of what's different about the BMW iX. I mean, again, the grille, I pointed that out earlier. There's also a neat little door there which you can refill your washer fluid with. But the curious thing about this model, particularly during the launch, was how do you open the hood? Many of the guys were trying to open this hood to get a peek at what's going on underneath, but they couldn't. But now we can. Haha, there you go. Now, what's powering the BMW iX is a 326 horsepower electric drive system. Now, the batteries, of course, are underneath, but as you can see, there's a little battery over here, which is kind of weird. But nevertheless, it's not something that they really want to show their customers because they didn't even bother covering anything up. It's kind of a bare thing, which is really all the engineering bits. So you can see the aluminum there, the steel all around. Now, the power pack there, that one drives the front wheels. There's another one driving the rear wheels. Now, what else can we see? There's a radiator here, but of course, the cooling demands of an electric drive system are not the same as a normal internal combustion engine, which is why it doesn't really need a big radiator grill for a lot of air. So this one is actually more efficient that way. But looking around, what else? Well, for one, it doesn't have any hood props, which is why our guy Nico is the one holding it up right now for me. Say hi, Nico.
Hi.
But yeah, that's really it for what makes the BMW iX. So this is the interior of the BMW iX, and it's really reminding me of Star Trek. And I mean that when the captain was Picard, not Kirk, because look at that screen and how it comes out proud of this dashboard, which again looks very sci-fi to me. The screen itself is huge. It's like a panoramic screen that you would have in your home, of course, a very premium home. The resolution, fantastic. You can control a lot of things here through the buttons on the steering wheel as well. But here, this one, there's a lot going on because if you go to the home menu, right, you have the different things like navigation, Bluetooth, telephone, assistant, door open. Yes, the door is open while we're filming. But one thing I notice here is that it can be a bit overloading on the driver to mess with all of these things because profile, devices, assistant, Android Auto, radio, blah, 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 blah. That's a lot of things. So you really need to read your owner's handbook, which is right here, which also, it may take a while. So keep that in mind if you get in one of these or have your sales agent really take you through the features of the vehicle. Now, when it comes to the stuff on this vehicle, well, look around because you do have Apple CarPlay, wireless Apple CarPlay, and wireless Android Auto. But right now, my phone is not connected to it because my Bluetooth is off. But once you do connect, well, there are many places you can put your phone, actually two. One is right here, which I really like. I really like this setup right here. But also, if you want to charge, you go underneath. There's a wireless charger just behind the cup holders. Now, your primary drive controls are, of course, right here. Steering wheel, got all your buttons for the audio and stuff, cruise control, and the limiter right here. Strangely enough, I'm not seeing an adaptive cruise control function on this model, which is odd, but nevertheless, that's all right. Light controls here, wiper controls here. There are also light buttons here. It doesn't have the dial type light buttons here on the left knee of the driver. But the controls here is actually one thing that you should get familiarized with because if you notice when you get into one of the iXs, you have to press step on the brake and then press a start stop button because it may seem like it's on, but not yet. Unless you see the ready indicator here on the dashboard, you won't be able to drive. So when you're running already, if you notice there's no shift lever here, what you have is this toggle, which is kind of different, but still it works. So put it down to drive when you're stepping on the brake. You can also push it down one more to B, which results in a more aggressive engine braking mode. Makes it, it really prioritizes the recovery of the energy of the vehicle. Again, electric cars, when you decelerate or when you brake, you recover some of the energy you would have otherwise lost in other ways. So then you go to neutral and then reverse, which you get your rear screen view there, which is actually a really nice screen. It has, of course, electronic parking brake, and it has the auto hold function right there. Here in the middle, you can also control many of the functions of the screen. Let me get out of this one right there. See, it has the home button, media, telephone, nav, the usual stuff. The camera there, volume there. This one is like the old control system, which is really, really nice. If you do get your fingerprints on it, you'll really want to wipe it off because it does get that way. But one thing BMW was focusing on here was being sustainable. Now, if you look at the leather, yes, you know, leather, it doesn't really say sustainable, but at least they treated it with some kind of olive branch, olive tree extract for the vehicle, which is kind of nice. This vehicle also makes use of a lot of recycled plastics and a lot of these other materials all around, which is good, you know, for the long term. But one thing I really want to point out when I do get out of the vehicle is how the door is open. Because if you grab at the normal door handle, there is no handle, there is no lever there's no button there. Instead, it's right up here. Cool, right? Oh, there's one more lever right here, but yeah, this one is kind of neat. Okay, so the back seat of the iX, really fantastic. I mean, you can really settle into this one for a long drive. And of course, it may seem like this might obstruct your vision quite a bit, but actually it's not too bad because you're kind of pushed into the center by the way these seats are scalloped. So you do get a nice view from the middle. You have a nice center armrest here. You've got 4 USB charging ports here in the back, but you will need the USB-C to USB-C, I think it's called the PD cable, to be able to use that. Same with the front. There are no USB 1 or USB-A type ports here. I mean, not that I can find anyway. Audio is Harman Kardon, used like really, really, really nice speakers. I mean, even when I was sitting in front, driving around, my audio is perfect. Rear AC controls right there, light up here, center armrest with cup holder. So it's all well and good, and a pocket over here. But what I really want to point out here is something that may not seem so obvious, and that's right here. If you can see it from this camera, the floor, it's fully flat. And the reason for that, because I mean, in normal rear-wheel drive cars, I mean, many BMWs are rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. You have a transmission tunnel there, a little hump there to allow for a transmission propeller shaft to go from, or a drive shaft to go from the front where the engine is to the back. But since it has dual motors, one in front, one in the back, connected by only wires, you don't need that. Oh, and also there's no exhaust piping to speak of, so you really don't need that. You have a nice flat space here. I mean, you can really chill in the back of the iX. Again, same thing, button right there. Yes, the interior of the BMW iX really has the ability to wow you. In many ways, it reminds me of my conversation with Benjamin Dimson, the Filipino automotive designer behind some of the Porsche 911 back in the 80s. But he was also one of the guys who did the Airbus A320 glass cockpit back in those days. So that kind of concept still pervades today, as you can see, the glass cockpit here. But what I'm liking so far is the ergonomics of it all. Now, I mentioned some of the things with the interior, but this shifter or the gear selector or drive selector, however you want to call it, it may look weird and feel strange, but once you get used to it, it's actually pretty easy. It's not that much different from like what Toyota has when it comes to their shifter, or what Nissan has, or even the BMW when the stick before. It's really the same setup, it just looks different. But what I'm really liking, and what you should really be careful of in any modern electric vehicle, is the instant acceleration. Let me show you. In 3, 2, 1. Wow. Now, you have to be very patient with the throttle, because if you're not, you can end up just lunging forward like that. Not very good. Treat the throttle with respect, because in many ways, this could lead to an accident if you're not careful, because the rush is addicting. It's like, when you have a turbo engine, the power of a really good turbo engine, but minus the lag, that's what this feels like. But one of the best aspects about the iX, especially in city driving, is the lack of vibration. Because for one, when you drive it around, you won't feel any kind of shaking, apart from the road, of course. I mean, we have some bad roads here, but if you have really good roads, then this will feel fantastic. And the reason is, of course, the suspension, but also the engine, or actually the lack of an engine. Because in a motor, you don't have any kind of reciprocating mass. So by that, I mean pistons moving up and down, causing the vehicle to shake, or causing the engine to shake. Now, when you factor that in, what you have is a really, really smooth running vehicle. And when you're, for example, driving, you won't feel any of those vibrations. When you're stuck in traffic, the motor is fully stopped. So there's no kind of vibration to cancel out. The benefit of that, for one, like when you look around and you're stuck in traffic, if the car is moving for whatever reason or shaking, look around you, is there wind? Or look around you, if the buildings are moving, then you have an earthquake, hopefully not. But it's a very, very comfortable ride. The other day, actually, I noticed that the wiper motors, I can feel them moving, which is weird. So when you're sitting in traffic, the wipers are moving, you can feel it kind of slightly shaking the car. It's a weird sensation, but really cool. The real benefit, though, when you're driving in a car that's like this smooth, this vibration-free, it doesn't make you pee on long drives. The way I see it, most people are anxious about electric vehicles for two things, particularly. The first one is range. Well, range anxiety, that is actually a thing. It's a weird concept to explain, but think about it this way. When you have your phone and you're running low on battery, let's say 5%, and there's no power bank near you, no USB cable, no solar charger, nowhere to plug in, imagine the anxiety you feel. It's the same for an electric vehicle. The first time I brought home an EV in the Philippines was in 2014. That was a BYD E6, I think it was an MPV. I remember feeling that range anxiety because back in 2014, there were no commercial charging stations yet. But that was 2014, this is 2022, and thankfully the situation is improving. More and more malls, gas stations also are starting to have their own commercial charging stations that you can access. And so far, the technology is starting to become more available for EVs. But one thing I did realize though, when I plugged into the one in SM Marikina yesterday, it wasn't working with this one. So now when it comes to outright range at 100% BMW under the WLTP cycle, they say this can do 372 kilometers overall. But the thing is, they're not recommending you charge it up to full every single time, because they want to make sure that the battery lasts a long time. So going for a full charge kind of, I guess, hurts the battery in the long term. I mean, it's true with most phones and actually most batteries. So I guess that's a smart way to go, but it's kind of a bummer that we can't get the full range out of it right away. The second thing is about the soul of a vehicle, or the lack of a soul when it comes to electric cars. And that's especially true for a brand like BMW, because this brand has a lot of purists with it. And the expectation is that you'll have a really good straight six front engine, rear wheel drive. It's gotta have sweet handling. The steering has to communicate with you in every single language, like talking to your fingertips, that kind of thing. In this one, you don't get that, because this is a fundamentally different vehicle. And that is the thing with the EVs nowadays, because they have kind of have a soul all their own. They're not gonna feel like their piston-driven counterparts with a straight six, that kind of thing. You have to kind of look at it from a different perspective, because this will give you the handling. It does have really good steering. It's not communicative in the classic hydraulic sense, but it's precise. But most of all, it's enjoyable. Because, I mean, you put your foot down, oh, holy crap, that is quick. I gotta stop doing that because it is addicting. But you see what I mean? It has a fun factor all its own. And there are many ways to experience a car, and this is a very enjoyable one to do so. Like I said before, the BMW iX was offered at an introductory price of 6.29 million. Now, I say introductory because that is going to likely change because of all the things happening around the world, especially with the exchange rate right now. So expect the prices to go up, unfortunately. But what I think about the BMW iX is this. I think BMW is aiming for a very different kind of customer. Now, normally BMWs, they like to pander to their traditional fans, which is why you see a lot of classic elements with the designs of their vehicle. But with the iX, we see very few of those designs. Of course, it has that grille down there, well, not really grille again, and a few other details here and there. But this is a totally different vehicle, totally different BMW compared to anything we've seen before. I think they're aiming for a customer that perhaps 10 or 20 years ago got into the Prius craze, and now they're moving up into something more luxurious befitting their status. That, I think, is going to be the sweet spot of something like this. Someone who's an early adopter into a lot of these kinds of technologies. Now, personally, if I had the money for one of these, which I don't, would I get one? Yeah, I would. So long as they put more charging stations all around the metro and beyond. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya.com.